Good morning, and thank you all for joining us on this webinar that we've designed specifically for the not-for-profit sector. I'm Charlotte Fletcher, so the not-for-profit account manager at Summerford, and I'm joined by my colleague Grace Mayer, who is a certified Splunk consultant here at Summerford, and she also heads up our support desk. We also have Ollie and Rob from Splunk joining us. So Ollie is the non-profit account manager at Splunk, and Rob is a sales engineer at Splunk. So I'm going to start with an introduction of Summerford, and then Grace will give an overview of Splunk and get straight into a short demo looking at a number of cases that have been used by not-for-profit organisations. Then after that, Rob is going to go through some of the case studies and real-life examples of how Splunk has been used in the sector. And then Ollie will then talk to you about Splunk Pledge, which is a dedicated framework for the not-for-profit organisations. At the end, if there are any questions, we'll look through those and we can answer them, send them out to any one of us. But my email is on the last slide, so if anybody has any questions after the webinar, please do get in touch. The webinar will be recorded, so you will receive this along with the slide deck afterwards. So you might ask the question, why Summerford? So one important thing for us is putting the customer first. So all our consultants are customer focused, aligning with their needs and requirements to really tailor solutions. We have a dedicated support desk. So as I mentioned, Grace heads this up. And all of the engineers are certified in Splunk. So as well as Splunk support, customers also have access to our support desk as well. There are some factors, these are some of the factors, that lead us to being an elite partner, having elite partner status with Splunk, and also being award winners for the past 3 years, so 2017, 2018, and 2019. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Grace, who will give a brief introduction to Splunk before leading into demoing 3 key use cases of the platform. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. So if you guys do have any questions at any time during this webinar, do just pop them in the questions panel that's just on your attendee window. I'll periodically check it and also make sure we have some time at the end. Just something that Charlotte didn't cover off, if we do have any Wi-Fi problems or connectivity issues, it's unlikely, but things happen, then just let us know and we will be back if we do get disconnected, so don't fear. So if I just jump into my Splunk demo now, what I really wanted to show was a few different use cases that can be used in a variety of ways with the public sector and the not-for-profit sector as well. Now, obviously, Splunk is a massive platform for all machine data, and pretty much you can do anything and everything inside of Splunk. Now, what Splunk's premise is built on is the fact that you can make your data accessible, usable, and valuable to everyone. And it doesn't just mean your standard IT teams, it can be delivering back information to marketing, to sales, to finance, whatever your use case is. Pretty much if the data is in Splunk, you can ask whatever question of that data that you would like. Now, this obviously allows you to have a lot of flexibility in the types of questions that you're answering of your data. And because of the way that Splunk is licensed per gigabyte that you ingest, I always say the more use cases you can get out of it, the better. It's more value for you, means you're going to be happier when you see me, and it's just better for everyone. Now, if I show you through a basic kind of search inside of Splunk, it might show you a little bit more of what Splunk might be like if you actually were using it on your day-to-day basis. Now, if you haven't seen the search bar before inside of Splunk, and a lot of people always refer to it as Google for your data, and I always say it pretty much is, and that's because you can search in real-world terms, such as I could put in here, if I look into my demo index and say, you know, I just want to see anything that is error or failed, and I can put a wildcard, which for us is an asterisk at the end of it there, which basically will just mean anything, you know, that has fail at the start. So it could be failure, as it's picked up here. It could be failed here, or it could be fails, etc. Now, as you can see, we've really easily identified anything that is an error or a failing process across our organization here, but we're looking over a whole host of different data. And we might not always know, where this has come from, or even, what's within that data. If you've been unfortunate enough as I to have to work with grep for most of your life, I'm sure that you'll understand the pain of looking at a wall of text and having nothing highlighted to you, and then just getting what I like to call data blindness. Now, Splunk avoids that by having highlighted fields for you and also parsing the data into these nice, easily consumable events. Now, fields are just little descriptions of sections of the event for you. So you can see here we've got things like the host, the source type, and even things like the account name that's been doing the action, or even the version code. Or if I come down here, we can even see the email address of the customer. Now we're looking at this data across a whole different range of hosts, and we can see those down here. Now, if I take this little search command out, I can go ahead and I can just rerun this for the last 60 minutes, and I can take a look at what is all the data that we have inside of our index here. Now, something that probably most of us on this webinar today have is some Windows events. It's normally my standard first port of call for most businesses. And so now we're just limiting it down just to our Windows event logs for the security logs here. Now, as you can see, we've got more specific fields that have been extracted for this. And I can use these to interact with my data for searching, reporting, and alerting purposes. And I know you might be sat there thinking, that looks like it might be a little bit difficult to do, but I'm hopefully going to show you how easy it can be. Now, if I come down here, we can see that we've got a status here, and we can see that there's successes and failures. And say, just from a security standpoint, we wanted to see if there were any kind of brute force attempts, repeated failed logins for certain users over time. I can really easily find that out here. Now, of course, I can see the raw events here, but it doesn't really show me anything very visually pleasing, nothing that, we can put on a dashboard or something like that. But if I just pop a little time chart command in here, and I just want to do a total count of the events by the account name. Now this is going to create me a lovely little stats table, and of course we could schedule this for a report, or we could even start looking to run this as an alert and say, if the number of results for each user is more than, say, 5, and if we run it on a schedule, let's say we run it every hour. I wouldn't expect somebody to fail to log in more than 5 times in an hour. Now, these different alerts can have different actions. So down here, I could add it to my triggered alerts, which is inside of Splunk. I could have it to send an email to anybody, or even we could have a ServiceNow integration. There is a lot more integrations that you can get for the alert actions as well. So we can run a script to go ahead and do some remedial action for you, or we can hook into those great automation platforms like Puppet and Ansible to be able to, for example, retry to patch an update for a Windows server that we can see has failed to update. This should hopefully alleviate all of those kind of annoying day-to-day tasks that we all end up doing, like unlocking accounts, or just re-downloading a patch or restarting a server, so that we can focus on the real integral stuff to our business. Now, it may be that we want to see this over time, and I'd like to put this in more of a dashboard style view. Now, if I hop into my visualization tab here, this gives me a much better view of actually what's going on. And I can see over time that these 3 main users have been the main cause for an issue inside of our failed logins. And it looks like potentially we could be seeing some brute force activity, as it seems to be happening over time for the past hour. Now, we can also see that there's a large amount of logins which have kind of no username. Now, this could be a service account or a local admin, but I definitely want to take a better look at our security posture to really get a better understanding of what's going on here. Now, this is where I can use our great dashboarding functions to really help us pinpoint where the error is happening or potential security problem, and also see if it's having any wider impact. So here, if I just jump into my dashboard, you can see that each of these panels has just been made up by another one of those searches. So for example, down here, rather than counting it out by each individual user that's failing to log in, we're just counting it out by the actual success or the failure there. Now we can also see things like our VPN current connections, firewall denies, and again, because you can literally index any human readable data into Splunk, you don't need to ever limit yourself to just the confines of whatever the security tool is kind of prescriptively telling you that you should ingest. This means that using Splunk's machine learning and its artificial intelligence, we can put apps in like enterprise security, which will help us categorize the nature of the events that we're seeing inside of our security landscape. Now, if I look to the left here, I can see things like SQL injection attacks being detected, brute force access behavior being detected, and that's one that we actually also noticed in our time chart that we were doing before. What's great about Splunk is the fact that we do have automatic IP lookups. So more than just seeing that this attack has actually happened, I can go ahead and then actually click on this and it will dynamically change the map to the right so I can actually see that there are some issues going on and also where they're coming from. Now, if you were a firewall administrator, or a network admin, or even a service manager, you could then go through and get the firewall lockout if you do it based on kind of just geographic confines, or you could also just use those IP addresses to obviously block them specifically. Now, as you can see, there's a lot we can do with Splunk in the range of security, and it's a range of apps to assist you as well. And one that I really wanted to mention for the not-for-profit sector is the completely free application, which is called Security Essentials. Now, what Security Essentials will provide you is basically an inventory that you can run through on your data, and it will highlight to you the security use cases that you can actually do for that data set. So you're never having to worry, are we doing everything that we can do with the data that we have? And also, if you don't know where to start, it can be a really good guiding light for you. If you are looking to create a full SOC team and you'd like dedicated kind of enterprise security in a full scene workspace, then that is also an option should you want to. And we can always arrange one-on-one demos for any of the customers on the webinar today if you do want to see anything related to enterprise security. Now, just from the infrastructure side of things, I may want to see, for example, if somebody is attempting to do SQL injection attacks on our environment, or if somebody is attempting brute force access, then I might want to see if this is having any impact on our infrastructure as a whole. Now, if I hop into my IT operations visibility view, I can see here the hardware status of our different tiers, and I can see our network seems to be okay, but storage, CPU, and memory are all having an issue. Through to the middle here, I can see that we're actually having a problem with our service of the web store. And I can also see from an application level that we've got issues with our website and our database tiers. I can see that our transaction failures over time are really significantly rising. And what's really useful about Splunk is the fact that we can overlay things like your SLA, or even use our machine learning algorithms to display a altering or threshold-based SLA for you that you don't even need to set. Now we can see that we're having a lot of failed transactions, and this could even be people potentially donating who are trying to donate and potentially getting a failed response online, or through one of the many different campaigning sites that you can use now. Now, something that's really concerning is the fact that, our database and web service seems to be having a problem, and the fact that our website is completely down. What's great about Splunk is the fact that I can just do a little dynamic drill down here, and now I can easily see the query times that are actually being sent back to the database. If you do have any database admins or anybody that has to deal with a database on a daily basis, then I'm sure you understand the regular pain of having somebody run, select star from star, and it taking 5 hours to run and making your whole service fall over. So hopefully you can really target those people now and also stop those queries. Now we can see that there's a potentially strange, shall I say, query happening here, which is selecting all the passwords from all of our SIS users, and those primarily be system admins, so they're definitely looking for privileged accounts. Now we can see that this one actually didn't run, it kind of failed and it dropped off, it didn't actually successfully end. And we can see that then there also was another one ran, select star from our HR employee info database. So there definitely is somebody trying to either do like reconnaissance on us or just trying to get lateral movement inside of the business. And so it's literally that same piece of data viewed with two different lenses, as I mentioned earlier, from the security standpoint and also from your IT operations standpoint. Now, if I wanted to take a better look at the CPU and storage issues, I can just as easily pop those out as well. And now I can see, for example, the load by host, and we can see that MySQL O2 seems to be the specific database server that's having a problem. And so it might be that we want to take this one offline if it is being targeted with SQL injection attacks. Or maybe it is that across the whole cluster we want to actually take a closer look. I can also see by the storage rights that we're having a much higher level on our database storage here. And so again, it's that same piece of data, but viewed with slightly different lenses. And this is really where a lot of our public sector and not-for-profit clients get a lot of value from Splunk. Now, just on a slightly kind of different thought of the same data, is using it to actually analyze your customer base. Now, as you can see, we were monitoring our website here, and in this case, in the demo, it's something that actually is doing e-commerce, so you're purchasing products. It could be a donation website, or if you are a not-for-profit that potentially, sells a service and then, puts the profits back into helping people, then you can monitor that as well. But by getting that data in, you can also use those same events for looking at your customer base and actually either moving people up into higher value segments or just actually looking at the behavioral traits of your clients and customers. So that way you can have a look at what actually potentially makes people donate more, have more awareness on a certain issue, or even ways you can market yourselves better in the industry that you're in to kind of get yourselves head and shoulders above the rest. Now, if I pop into this kind of customer base analysis view, I can see here, where our customers are coming from in real time. And again, great mapping functionality that's built into Splunk with no add-ons necessary, that's tracking these people from their IPs. So it's really, really easy to actually be able to make these very advanced visualizations. If I scroll down a little bit more, we can see how the customers are performing over their lifetime revenue. And it could be looking at people who are, for example, giving a monthly donation by direct debit and really trying to move them up into a higher bracket, or even just seeing, the people who have been giving for a very long time. Here we can see more information about, their future, their lifetime revenue, and if they've had any problems or contacted support teams, or even had any problems, when they've reached out online. Now we can take this one step further and we can actually look on a customer by customer basis to really understand how maybe these really high value clients to yourselves are using their day-to-day service, or maybe how often they're logging into your site or services, or even how often they're even looking at the blogs, posts, or content that you upload to your website to bring awareness to the causes that you guys are all fighting for. Now we can see here that they've had poor service, but they're actually having good quality from us. And so again, you can use this to really promote your service to other people and in the industry itself, but also to make sure that any clients of yours that are giving on a long-term basis, that they can really make sure that they're getting a great service back from you. More importantly, we can also pull out data if you are somebody who collects either over a certain time period and really monitor in real time how that's performing geographically, or you could see if there's certain causes that are potentially reaching out to people a little bit more, and so that way you can really hone in your marketing and the content that you're putting out to really raise the awareness there. Now, I'm aware that I've just been speaking for a little while and I don't want to take up all the time, but I just wanted to pass over to Ollie and Rob that we have on the call here, and also leave some time for any questions that people may have about any of the use cases that I've just shown, whether they're more in IT operations, again, security, or any of the free security apps that we have here, or the kind of more donor analysis or customer base analysis that we have.
Fantastic. So what we wanted to share, first of all, was just a few real-world examples of where Splunk has been able to help in the areas of non-profit organizations. And Grace has mentioned quite a few different exciting ways in which we've been able to help organizations. And so hopefully some of the examples I'm now going to share will help to sort of bring that home and put it into a real-world example where we've made a real difference. So to start off with, I want to talk a little bit about NetHope. And many of you may have already heard of them, but essentially they function as a resource and a collaboration center for nearly 60 non-governmental organizations. And they play a key role in responding to global disasters and refugee crises. So a couple of examples would be the 2014 Ebola outbreak and also the Nepal earthquake in 2015. And NetHope have also installed internet and charging stations in 76 refugee camps in Greece, Slovenia, and Serbia. And that has had a benefit of touching around about 500,000 users in total, so quite a large operation. And originally, the organization found it challenging to coordinate all of the communication and relief efforts worldwide, because remember, this is a big operation. And they suffered from outdated and inaccurate network information, and they didn't really have a way of aggregating and analyzing all of the log data from a network that ultimately comprises of quite a few different technologies and quite a lot of different formats of data as well. And as we all know, having to handle and deal with all of these different types of data is a very real challenge, and that's something that they really struggled with. And they had already made the decision as an organization that they needed to establish a network operations center, or NOC, so that they can try and gain access to real-world updated network information. Now, through their collaboration with our Splunk for Good program, which Ollie will mention a little bit more in a little bit, and through deploying Splunk Enterprise, this has enabled NetHope to track all of its worldwide networks and devices in the field, so not just on-premise, but also mobile devices that are out there as well. And it's also provided them insights that allow them to not only do routine tasks like network maintenance, but also to do network planning and re-architecture designs as well. And even also building dashboards to help their partner organizations to monitor their own networks as well. So this has really benefited the whole partner ecosystem for NetHope. And I suppose most importantly, now that they're actually armed with much more comprehensive insights into the infrastructure that they have deployed, NetHope are able to gain insight into the status of all of their efforts worldwide, and to ultimately help to magnify the cause that they're really fighting hard to further. The second organisation I wanted to talk about was Rise Against Hunger, who are an international humanitarian hunger relief organisation. Just to put it into a bit of perspective, in 2018 they fed almost 800,000 people, and the main aim of their organisation is to actually eradicate world hunger entirely by 2030. So a very ambitious initiative that they're working on. And as part of these efforts, they also work to empower communities in developing countries. So they have projects like agricultural training and also finance programs to help people to become more self-sufficient. And they also provide meals to schools, hospitals, health clinics, as well as responding to natural disasters and crises as well. So they provide food, clean water, and hygiene kits in those kinds of situations. So along with that inevitable logistical challenge, there is also a big data challenge for them. They have over 430,000 volunteers globally, as well as over 180 different ITS systems in their environment as well. So there's a lot of data, and they really needed to securely manage the data for both their volunteers as well as the online donors who are donating via their website every day. They also needed to track packages and meals on a global scale. So remember, they're delivering a lot of food, so they wanted to really nail down where these packages were and to make sure that that whole end-to-end delivery was as smooth as possible. And all of the time, they also needed to be ensuring that they met their compliance regulations as well. So a couple of examples were the Global California Privacy Act, as well as, of course, GDPR as well. So there was certainly a huge compliance element there for them. Now, through Splunk's corporate volunteer program, Splunk for Good, Splunk started out by helping to package the meals. So this was very much a physical on-site kind of helping out to do this packaging. And then naturally, where you have Splunk engineers volunteering, there's always going to be a bit of creativity and some creative juices going. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And so the engineers who were involved started to get creative and to think of ways in which Splunk's technology could help to improve these processes, such as things like adding RFID tags onto the meals so that they can actually track them. And so now, through their partnership with Splunk, Rise Against Hunger have full visibility across all of their disparate systems, which helps their IT teams to optimize and to rationalize where appropriate to save costs. And of course, they now also have supply chain visibility worldwide, so they can effectively track and manage that distribution of meals. And crucially, they have a clear and efficient way to maintain and to demonstrate regulatory compliance for all of this data. Now, for the third example, this is going to be something slightly different. I wanted to talk about Kurt Geiger. And if you haven't heard of them before, they are a luxury footwear brand, so that they are a retail customer. And they have over 80 stores and over 240 concessions globally. And also their websites serve more than 1 million page views every day. So customer experience, of course, for a retail organization is going to be vital, as well as the uptime of that website. And as an organization, they needed a solution that used the insights that was provided from all of this data to help to speed up and to troubleshoot and to ensure that the customer experience was optimal. Historically, when errors and issues occurred on a website, the team really went through a very slow and manual troubleshooting process to identify the root cause. So, you know, all of the things that Grace has talked about, probably a lot of grep and a lot of trawling through manual logs, and it just took an age. As well as that, the e-commerce team, they needed a solution that would bring together all of this siloed data from multiple websites and to make it searchable in real time. And to add a bit more complexity to this picture as well, Kurt Geiger had also shifted to the cloud, so they also had a large Amazon Web Services deployment to manage as well. So the data was really distributed across lots of different places. So as I said before, adopting Splunk, they didn't really have a way of proactively searching across all of that data, and they only really found out about issues when customers called in and logged an issue with their support team. But by implementing Splunk Enterprise, the company now analyzes all of that machine data that's generated by the websites all in one place in Splunk, which ultimately allows them to analyze and react a lot faster, whether that's from the receiving the initial alert from Splunk through to investigating and then actually fixing the issue altogether. Now, they initially deployed Splunk to gain a view just of the websites, and they now monitor kurtgeiger.com and shoeaholics.com, and this was all really geared around optimizing that experience. And this has actually really paid dividends at peak times, such as Black Friday. So there are going to be busy times when your websites are going to be particularly busy and experiencing high volumes of traffic. And so for them, they're able to ensure that those high volumes of traffic don't ultimately impact the experience of website users. They're also able to use machine learning to identify any unusual activity on the website. So for example, there have been occasions where Splunk has reported an unexpectedly high volume of traffic, and and that has ultimately allowed the team to investigate that suspicious activity and to drill down and uncover potentially malicious behaviour. And now Kurt Geiger really looking at rolling Splunk out across the organisation. So again, as Grace mentioned, being able to use that data or use Splunk across the business, the more use cases, the more value. And that's really the case that they've seen here. Now, you may wonder why I'm mentioning a retail customer. So obviously, as a luxury brand, the Splunk platform is helping Kurt Geiger to enhance the online experience and to make sure that the websites live up to its brand values. So for a non-profit organization, obviously the mission is going to be very different. But when it comes to accepting donations, recruiting volunteers, or even providing a service, the need to keep that website available and optimized is equally critical in achieving that mission. So those are three very different examples that I wanted to mention, and I hope you can see that the real value that Splunk is bringing to those organizations.
Thank you, Rob. So just to kind of move on from that, so to introduce myself, my name's Oliver Hewitt. I'm the non-profit account manager for Splunk here in the UK. And really my hope from what you've heard from Grace and Rob is that you get a real understanding as to how organizations are using us across the board. As Grace has shown, you know, we're used quite fluently through the security standpoint, moving over into the more IT operations standpoint, and then, you know, looking after online traffic, optimizing people's websites, you know, whatever it may be. From a data standpoint, we are the sole provider of, you know, across the board solutions. So hopefully that's come across so far. The good thing is that as non-profit organizations, we do ensure that we are being as nice as we possibly can, I suppose, in terms of the way we operate with you guys. So I want to talk briefly about the Splunk Pledge and what that kind of means for you lot. So it's our commitment to research, education and community service. This was actually released some years ago now, where we've actually committed to donate over $100 million over a 10-year period in terms of software licenses and training. So 100 million is obviously quite a large sum of money. We've still got plenty of that left to spend, but the idea being that we're able to help organisations like yourself really make an impact in what they're trying to achieve, whether that be keeping the lights on from an IT standpoint, ensuring that, you know, organisations like yourselves are fully secure, or, as you know, Rob has touched on there, actually helping in aiding the mission with things like, you know, Rise Against Hunger and stuff like that. So really straightforward. To qualify, your organisation must meet the following criteria. Be a certified international charity. So if the organisation carries a registered charity number, you will qualify to receive or be indicted, if you like, into the Splunk Pledge. The other part is really providing a use case and an impact plan on how you're going to use Splunk. Now, this isn't, you know, it's supposed to be War and Peace. We really just want to get an understanding as to how you're planning to use the solution, how it's going to make an impact on the organisation, so we can track and make sure that we're optimizing the way we push it out to you guys. What you'll receive is a 1-year 10 gigabyte software license at completely no cost, and this license is also infinitely renewable. So what we tend to find with a lot of organizations is that they use the 10 gig license and obviously want to start increasing that across the board because they found different areas within the organization they'd like to use it. However, if that isn't the case, it's not as if we're going to, after year 1, turn around and say, right, now you owe us for year 2 and 3. Should you stay at the 10 gigabyte amount, then that license is infinitely renewable until the end of time. There's a lot of complementary e-learning and support to get you up and running. So a support contract is provided alongside that as well at zero cost. Splunk as an organization is very keen on ensuring that they've got as much literature and videos and whatever it may be to make sure that people are getting the most out of the platform. So we can absolutely provide you with detailed information about how to do certain things, and there will be some e-learning sent to you immediately once signing up. Should you look to increase the software license past the 10 gigabyte limit, we do offer additional discounts solely provided to non-profit organizations, which is 40% off any additional gigabytes for on-prem license, and further 20% off any Splunk Cloud so things that we host within Splunk. So there are plenty of savings to be made. What we really advise is that you get yourself signed up to the Splunk Pledge and get that 10 GB license in. We'd love to be able to take you through how you should be utilising it straight off the bat and seeing value from it straight away. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All the information will be provided on the Splunk Pledge site, and obviously you can contact Charlotte or myself should you need any more information about how to apply. That's pretty much it from me. I'd like to pass it back over to Charlotte and Grace.
Thanks, Ollie. So thank you to Grace, Rob and Ollie for going through all of that. Hopefully you found it useful. As you're listening in today, just wanted to let you know that if you are to use Splunk in the future, that Somerford can offer a complimentary health check on your instance. So to make sure you are really maximising the platform itself, everything's flowing smoothly. So as well as today's webinar, which is specifically dedicated to the not-for-profit sector, Somerford also deliver workshops and webinars and virtual workshops as well around lots of different areas of Splunk. So if there's a specific use case that you are looking into, we've got lots of different workshops and webinars that you might want to get involved in. Okay, so now we're going to have a look and see if there were any questions, or if anyone has any questions at this point, please do feel free to put them forward. As Grace said, it's on the right-hand side of your screen. Okay, so no questions have come through at this point, but do have any following on from the webinar, please do use my email or telephone number to get in touch, and I can either answer them myself or hand them out to any of the other speakers from today. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar and found it useful. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Thank you.